Welcome back to another monthly market update for the Columbus, Ohio real estate market. I'm Ryan Deeter with Key Realty, and in today's video, we do a deep dive into the May 2024 numbers. But we're sitting here in June, halfway through the year. I want to talk about what happens every year in June, and as we've seen this pattern the last handful of years, and we're seeing it again this year. There's actually a shift happening here in the market, and if you're looking to buy a house, this may be an opportunity for you. If you're looking to sell, we just got to be careful and understand where the market's at. So this is a great video if you're looking to do something or just want to know what's happening in Columbus, Ohio in the real estate market. So stay tuned. All right, this is the Columbus, Ohio Realtor Board statistic they put out for us, and this is the region of Columbus. So it encapsulates a lot of counties and the whole area of Columbus. So this is a general snapshot. Again, if you're wanting to know more about your area, happy to have that discussion. The board actually puts out individual areas as well. So please feel free to go to their website and look at their individual areas if you're interested. But I want to just take a snapshot of what's going on in Columbus and kind of talk about we're really into May, and as I said in the intro, we're essentially halfway through the year. And if you follow along these videos, I kind of talk about the spring market, and if you know anything about real estate in Columbus, the spring market is obviously the little bit of the frenzy where most of the crazy action happens. And so we've seen that. We've seen that this year just as much as we have any other year, in my opinion. In 21, we saw some crazy stuff start happening the year after COVID, the year after 2020. And, we started seeing appraisal gaps and people foregoing inspections and all these other things happen to kind of become the norm, buying a house with you saying you're going to buy it as is without asking for remedies. This has kind of become the norm during the spring market. And what we see actually is that kind of come and go where, every year, the last 3 years, we've seen this where in the spring, you have to use those, tactics to be competitive to get a house. You have to, use what's called an appraisal gap language, go above asking. And these are for, majority houses, the houses that, most people that are going to have multiple offers and things like that. So, every year we see that happen in the last few years. And what happens though is in the summer, we start to see a shift. We start to see things start to cool down. The buyers, what I tell a lot of people is that the desperate buyers are in the spring and they either have found a house or they went with plan B because they had to make a decision in the spring. And so we start to see a lot of those things cool off in a sense. We start to see, the ability for buyers not to have to make crazy over asking offers and have to make appraisal gap language or maybe say, foregoing inspections, things like that. So we're starting to see that this year too. And I want to just bring that up because that's what I'm seeing in the field. It's what I'm, as a listing agent and buyer's agent, what I'm starting to notice is that we're starting to see that shift in June. And it usually happens about the second week to June, in June, and maybe the last week in May. Really start to see the signs of it, and then it really hits second week of June. And I think there's a variety of reasons, and I don't want to get into that in this video, but I want to talk about just kind of where we are as May is going to be the peak of the market. And you can see here, let's go down just to this graph first. And you can see here every year that the line, the last few years especially, is even more drastic than it has been. But I think we're going to see this again this year where we've seen this line just shoot up in the spring, and we're going to see one more, maybe one more month of, a little bit higher maybe, or even flatlining what we're seeing in June. But we can see here, we have, very similar, a little bit higher homes that have actually sold, amount of homes that have sold this year compared to last year. We have, just a little bit higher in contracts than we had last year. So that means next month we'll probably see a little bit higher homes sold. So we're right on trend there. But I want to talk about the pricing, of course, because that's what a lot of people are focused on. And now, again, I like to look at the average median and an average price per square foot kind of as a holistic number. There's not, it's kind of a good way to understand the market and where it's going. And you can see there's actually quite a bit of difference, really about over 50% difference in these numbers. So this is we don't really tend to see it this drastic often where it's that big of a difference. But, I kind of look at these numbers as a whole and say, okay, Columbus, if you're predicting the appreciation, the next few years, or what we want to say this year is, I'd probably say around that 5%. This would be year over year change. And so, so kind of take those numbers holistically. I think some people think the median price is a little bit more true, just a true number. But the average price is often what you see on, advertisements, things like that too. So it's good to know all of them and kind of have a holistic view of that. The price per square foot is probably one of my favorite, just because it's a little bit more, true to the actual size of the house and kind of can be there. So, anyways, so with all these numbers, I just want to show you kind of where we've come from this last month, and the difference, and just to kind of, if you're thinking about buying a house, or especially thinking about selling a house, the difference between 1 month can make in Columbus. And so going back to April, you can see the numbers here. We still have about that same amount of appreciation year over year. But what I want to show you is the jump between, month over month, because, this is where we see the biggest jump, in my opinion, is not my opinion, but we see it on the statistics here, is from April to May. And you can see here, we've seen in April of, just last month, we saw the average price was 360 essentially, and now it's 385. That's almost $25,000 jump in average price. Median price was about a $13,000 difference in 1 month. And so just keep in mind, and this is average price per square foot is 208 to 200, and April was 200. And so if you put that in a 2,000 square foot house, that could be the difference about, again, $15,000 to $16,000. And so that's a 1 month jump of making, hanging on and making about 15 grand by waiting 1 month. This is, and there's a lot of factors of this. So it's not just hey, if you wait a month, you're guaranteed to do that. A lot of people that are listing their houses in April, and keep in mind, yeah, so going back to that, so keep in mind that these are houses that are being listed in April. So these closings that happen, have the listings start typically, if it's a 30-day window, how many days to close, days on market is about a 28 days. It takes about an average 30 days to close. And so most of the houses that close in April are listed in March. And so waiting from March to list in April, so the houses that close in May then would have listed in April. And so that's the difference between listing your house in March versus April. And there's not, the nice thing about this is that you're going to get about the same if you wait in May to June. These numbers are going to start to flatline, which is not the worst thing. So you have this window of, really April to May to list your house to get top dollar in Columbus. Doesn't mean you're not going to get top dollar. Just means that's the most likely chance to get it. And so you can see here, that's the window to get top dollar, and it starts to go down after June. If you list in June, all of a sudden now there starts to be the dip. Every year we see that. And so because, again, going back, most of the desperate buyers are are April to May. They may start in March, but they get serious in April. And so that's where, if you're wanting to get top dollar and, for your house, if you're thinking about listing, that's the window that I, highly recommend kind of trying to, do that for. At the same time, it's like, there's just because you may not be able to wait to that window. And just because you have to listen another time doesn't mean you can't get top dollar. You just have to understand the market and strategize based on where the market's at that month. Don't think that a lot of buyers, a lot of sellers make the mistake of thinking this line is going to go up and to the right forever and always, and not understanding the monthly cycles of Columbus market. So just keep that in mind as we move forward here. I want to kind of talk about that, and then looking at even more so if you look at that line of from January to May. Again, I think January's here. Yeah, January's here. So you can see January's numbers were average price was 330, price per square feet, or median price was 286 under that 300 mark, and then 188 for average price per square foot. And so that's about, I think the average difference was over $50,000. The median difference was about 44, and the average price per square foot on a 2,000 square foot house was about a $40,000 difference. So let's say, between $45,000 to $50,000 difference from waiting to, sell your house in January to May or April. And so that's the reality of this. And just to be helpful, if you're looking at selling your house, this could be a helpful thing to think about. Waiting those 3 to 4 months could make you another 50K. And so, which is a big difference. And the best thing to do is to, in my opinion, is to buy a house in January and then try to sell your house in April and May. You could save almost $100,000 theoretically if you buy something for $50,000 less than it's valued. And then you can pay, and you get $50,000 more for your house. And so that's the reality. Now you're paying more than you would have last January, of course, because the market is still going up and to the right. If we look at this, if we look at January's numbers, they were still in the positive. They're still increasing year over year, and I see Columbus continue to do that. A lot of it, this is all done with high interest rates, quote unquote high interest rates, higher interest rates in the sevens, average in the sevens, and so this is the year I thought maybe things would slow down into a slower growth pattern. And we did see, more of a 5%, 5 to 6% appreciation, which is a little bit more modest than we've seen in the last few years, but the price point's also higher. So that, even though it's a lower percentage, it's still just as much money because of the higher price points, if not more money when it comes to the appreciation amount. So anyways, I hope that's helpful. I want to kind of just focus on that this video, as kind of, again, every time this year I talk about how that can really save you not only money and energy, but also just understanding where the market's at. So I want to leave you on one last thing, and just where interest rates are. We are seeing again in that seven, the 30-year fix around that 7% and all that. So yeah, and if you have any questions in regards to your individual needs of real estate and all that, let me know. The good news for buyers, the reason I share this, the good news for buyers is that we are entering that window of, hey, things aren't going to be flying off the shelf. We don't have to make those crazy offers. They're still going to be, houses are going to be priced a little higher than they were 3 months ago. But there's a little bit more negotiation that happens this time of year. So if you're interested in buying, and if you didn't want to compete with all the other offers, now may be the time to come out and start looking again. So again, hopefully this is helpful. I'm Ryan Deeter with Key Realty. If you have any questions, just please feel free to reach out.